Iowa's season, folks, is over. We'll talk about it in just a second. The men bowing out of the NIT. Before we get to the content for this evening, first of all, thank you for being here. Appreciate everybody supporting this show throughout the season, both on the men's and the women's side. But we also want to thank our sponsor, Iowa Smokehouse. Check out their awesome meat products. This stuff doesn't end. Iowa Smokehouse season never ends. Use the code Hawkeyes to get 15% off your total order of meat sticks, jerky, whatever the case may be. Use the code Hawkeyes for 15% off your order at iowasmokehouse.com. You spend $50, you'll get free shipping. We got plenty of sports still on the way, both for the Iowa women and so many other sports in the pipeline this spring. Also want to thank RTI Threads. Let's throw RTI Threads banner up there, maybe, possibly. Here we go. RTI Threads is a proud supporter of this show and of Iowa baseball. The Hawkeyes, their season in full swing, their Big Ten season now underway. Check out the Iowa baseball apparel over at iowabaseballswarm.com and get your threads today. Check out the newly launched website, www.iowabaseballswarm.com, and support the NIL cause. Just seeing, I just got a notification on my phone that we've got an overtime game involving a 1 seed in the NCAA tournament. So, yeah, 85 people here. I'll take it. I want to welcome a good friend of mine. Frank Henderson is with us. Frank, as I always introduce you, you're the uncle to our friend Tony Perkins, who unfortunately this evening struggled along with the rest of his teammates. I want to get to the ins and outs of what happened today, but whenever you get to this point in the season, there's only a couple teams that win their final games. of their season, right? Most teams end up losing at some point.
Yeah.
But at some point, Frank, I mean, like, you have to look at how you lose. And I think the one thing I take away from how they lost this evening, and I'm guessing that the players are going to say the same things when they go back and look at the tape. I don't know that I would say it was effort. I don't think that's the case, but they got out rebounded defensively. They weren't very good. I think the word soft was tossed around in a conversation I had with you earlier. Just your thoughts overall on this performance and on the road at a Utah team that's decent, but a pretty empty crowd.
Can you hear me pretty good, Corey? Can you hear me?
You sound like you're in a well, but I can actually hear you in the well. So
let's try this now. Can you hear me better?
That's better. That's better. I got you
Perfect. Now. Oh man. Oh man. Where do I begin?
Let it all out,
so
man.
I know, Corey. I was texting you during the game. I was highly disappointed. I don't know what it is. It's just lack of preparation. I mean, granted, Tony and Pay did not have the best scoring. I think they had like their all-time lows collectively together, but they just were not prepared. I don't know if it was I don't think altitude plays a role in Utah, does it?
Somebody else would have to. I guess Salt Lake City, yeah, probably would.
Maybe that's Denver. I'm thinking of the Mile High City, but
let's push that narrative. We've pushed the narrative that it's always the Wilson ball in the postseason. Let's start pushing the narrative that it was the altitude.
It was the altitude. No, seriously, man. I don't know what it was. I mean, if you look at our 3 end of the season losses when we lost last year, and then we lost this game there, and then we lost the first game against what was that, St. Peter's? No, that wasn't St. Peter's that we lost to. Who was it? Who did we lose to 2 years ago?
Richmond.
Yeah, the Richmond Spiders. I don't know. It just seems our leading scorers just doesn't get going. The past 3 seasons been the same issue. So I mean, I don't know, Corey. I'm all over the place today. I don't know, man. I'm a little disappointed in our Hawkeyes, but the effort was there, but we just didn't score the basketball.
Peyton Sandfort, 1 of 11 from the field, 0 for 5 from 3, 5 points, 5 fouls. Actually fouled out of the game. 4 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 turnovers. 25 minutes played. That is a stat line of a young man that we saw. And I understand guys have off nights. I get it. And when you're on the road, anything can happen. You talked about the altitude, whatever. But that's not a stat line we've seen from Peyton Sandfort anytime recently. And frankly, I'm surprised by that because he is a guy now who I've kind of counted on. If he's not shooting the ball real well from 3, he's going to find other ways to put the ball in the basket and create points, create rebounds. And I understand limited minutes with 25 and foul trouble, but I mean, the 4 rebounds is a little bit alarming to me. And then obviously the fact that you make 1 of your 11 attempts. And then Tony, 1 of 5 from the field. His 1 make was a 3, 4 rebounds, had 3 assists, 3 points. That assist number to me is way too low for a guy who I consider the primary ball handler on this team. As a team, Iowa had just 17 assists in the game. Brock Harding added 4 off the bench. And our RTI Threads player of the game, I guess this is a nice little bone to throw a guy who's probably not going to be back next year. Patrick McCaffrey, our RTI Threads player of the game, 19 points, 7 of 9 from the field with 4 rebounds, made a late garbage 3. And he had some moments that were decent. Again, coming off the bench, he was an efficient 7 of 9. I thought a couple of those rebounds in the second half gave him a chance when they were trying to make a push there late. But man, I just see first of all, I see a lot of goose eggs on the box score. And I see a lot of meh as I look around at the box score. I see a lot of meh. I look at the Utah box score and I see a guy who had 31 with 7 threes, a career high. And then I see a guy who had a triple-double, 19, 10, and 10. And then you get thoroughly out-rebounded, 43-36.
Yeah.
Iowa actually took care of the basketball relatively well. Just 8 turnovers on the road. You'll take that. But, man, you dig yourself an 18-point deficit, and, again, you're trying to play catch-up. I don't know. I guess people can probably tell I'm still trying to filter through, like, besides just the fact that defensively this team is still not good enough to be consistently good, what else do you attribute this to, Frank?
I'm speechless, Corey. I don't know. I really don't know tonight, man. Like you said, the box score pretty much tells the story of what happened. I will honestly say this is maybe Patrick's best game this season. On the flip side, like we just mentioned, Peyton's probably worst game of the season. Utah, the 2 best scorers, had their best night ever. I think one of the guys at the career high was the 31 points you just read off. 31 points off of 5 threes.
7
I mean, the
threes.
guy just 7 3. He wasn't missing. I mean, in his jump shot off that 1-footer 3, I'm like, come on, man, he's just throwing it up there. But he was making them. And like you said, every time we made that push, we break it down to 7. We break the lead to 5. We even got it, very close. I mean, he hits a 3. Then we come down and foul Utah, and they get an and 1. It's just we never got grips of our efforts, even though you say defensively we're not a strong team, which we're not, but we did make a push there and get a few lucky misses here and there where we kind of can turn over to get a point. But again, like you said, it just wasn't enough firepower tonight to get the W.
All right, I'm going to be a little bit strong with my criticism here for a second. And I'll preface this by saying I'm not a coach. Sometimes you get people that hear you be critical and, you don't know what you're talking about. You're not a coach. Not claiming to be a coach, okay? Not claiming to even know how to fix the problem. However, one of the big problems in my opinion, with the Fran McCaffrey defense is the inability to react to an in-game situation that was not scouted or not seen on tape ahead of time. And I use the example of our guy today. And let me pull up the numbers because I have the official stats now. Just came in from the NCAA box score. So we mentioned the guy that had 7 threes. That was Gabe Madsen. 7 threes, 7 of 15 from the field or from 3, 9 of 19 overall from the field, 31 points, a career high. But the inability to identify and correct when a guy gets hot. I have watched a lot of basketball. All right. You're a little older than I am, Frank. You've played basketball at a much higher level than I have. But tell me that's not a big part of being, and I know Coach Close would be an excellent person. We don't have him here tonight, but tell me that's not a big part of being a good in-game coach, of being able to identify and correct when you see a guy's getting hot, even if it's going away from the scouting report a little bit and figuring out a way to make someone else beat you because they did not make anyone else beat him tonight.
No, you're exactly right. I mean, I can agree. My sister, one of my older sisters, she always contends and gives Fran a hard time. She says Fran's in-game adjustments are not the best. I mean, it's kind of like, to be honest with you, Iowa basketball is very predictable. It's very monotonous, offense and defensively, what we're going to do, how we're going to try to score, how we're going to try to stop you. The in-game adjustments, I don't know exactly what Fran is telling his players, because obviously we're not there in the locker room, we're not on the bench neither. But at the same time, it's like nothing seems to change. And one thing I did pick up as a player and a coach, every time Manson scored, is coming off the screen going right. What if we were forced him to come off the screen going left? Would he still took in the same jumper? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe he would have drove in. You know what I mean? And again, some guys just have a good night. They just have a hot night. But, I mean, at least make it uncomfortable for them. One thing I can say is, like, if a guy's getting hot and we just can't seem to stop him, you got to be a little bit more physical with the guy. Make him uncomfortable. Make him pass the ball. Make him feel like he can't even catch the ball. I mean, face guard him at least, to where he's just out the picture completely, throw him off rhythm. But again, Corey, you're exactly right. I mean, finding ways to shut down scorers who are hot has been a struggle for Iowa all year.
And I would go further. It's been a struggle for years. Okay. It's been a struggle for years. And, I think it was the last 3 that Madsen hit from the corner, I think, was like the microcosm. I saw it coming. Defense collapses and easy kick out to the corner. It's just like the most cardinal of sins as it relates to giving up threes, giving up a wide open corner three to a guy who's already hit 6 on you. And I mean, I know I'm not the only one who feels this way. I do want to get to our callers. We do have a number of people. I promised Frank a short night, so we're going to get to our Iowa Smokehouse callers. Let's start with Doug, who's on our Iowa Smokehouse calling line. I know Doug's a big Hawkeye fan and a big supporter of Tony Perkins, and I don't think you were on after the Kansas State game with Frank, so welcome to the show, Doug.
Yeah, we went to the NIT game. I had a lot of fun. I got to see quite a few people. It was what it was. I'm not going to come on here and defend Fran. I think a lot of people heard the Darren DeVries news. That was my top candidate for if Fran leads. I don't know what the future is. I'm going to start off by talking about this game. Smith had a great game, but outside Smith, I didn't think any of their players were all that athletic. You know, we always talk about how every team's just more athletic than us. That Utah team wasn't that athletic. Matson's not that great of an athlete. I mean, any white guy wearing 55, you got to get up on because that means he can hit a three, especially like a guard. Purdue had one of those guys a couple years ago. So, yeah. I did have a question for Frank before I got started. Frank, did you play at Ball State for Billy Taylor?
I sure did, yes.
Is that the tie to get Tony to Iowa, or how did Tony end up at Iowa? I was just curious if that a factor.
You know what's funny? When I was, coaching my nephew at the time, Tony, I didn't know where Billy Taylor was. You know, I think he was at the time. I knew he was at a previous school before Iowa. So then when Iowa gave him the offer, I did my homework on Iowa. I was like, oh, snap, Billy Taylor's there. So come full circle, Tony actually met Billy Taylor when I was at Ball State, but Tony Tom was like a 4th grader, so he doesn't really remember, you know what I mean? So when Tony went on his school visit and I told him about Billy, and Billy was like, yeah, my uncle is Franklin Henderson. He was like, Franklin Henderson? Like, then he remembered the connection there, but no, that wasn't the initial connection, because me and Billy, we touched bases here and there, but it wasn't something consistent to where I knew what he was doing, from year to year.
Yeah. So for bringing that up, I think people would rather hear about that than Utah's game with tonight.
Hold on a second. You've come on here and preached Iowa basketball to people, and I know you said you're not going to come on here and defend Fran, and I'm not asking you to defend Fran, but give me big picture. This is the end of the year. They don't play. This is it. Like as the banner says there up on the screen. The season is over. So give me your big picture as a fan.
I hope it was a rebuilding year. I hope it isn't the start of something really bad. We'll see what happens in the portal. We'll see what happens with Tony. There's already been links to a couple different players in the portal, the Eastern Kentucky point guard, the Mount St. Mary's guard. There's 800 players in the portal. This team, believe it or not, isn't as far off as people think. Maybe people are already laughing at me in the chat about that.
Far off, well, hold on. Far off from what?
Sweet 16.
Okay. I'm not saying you're wrong, but you can't really say that when they haven't done it since 1999. Like, it's hard to just say, well, they're this close to the Sweet 16. Iowa State's made 2 straight Sweet 16s now with a third-year coach. Or not 2 years. What have they made? 2 of the last 3? I lose track.
They make it. I don't know.
Miami in the Sweet 16 last year, the year before that, whatever it was. It was the year before that. My point is, you have teams around Iowa making the Sweet 16 routinely, but how can we say Iowa's this close to the Sweet 16 when they haven't done it?
Because
the difference between making the tournament and making the Sweet 16.
Difference from making the tournament and making the Sweet 16.
Big difference. Obviously.
Can be. I mean, I think that this team, we'll see what happens over the next couple months. This college basketball, there's a reason why that portal has worked for some schools. If you're wanting to get rid of Fran and blow up the roster, how much quicker they don't get to the Sweet 16 anyway? I mean, because how many special transfers if they get rid of Fran this year?
Let me be devil's advocate. I am not. And I'm not going to ask Frank to comment. I am not commenting on an opinion that they need to get rid of Fran. First of all, it's not going to happen. Second of all, I'm not promoting that. However, to be devil's advocate, Doug, for people that would say I'm ready for that to happen, you can't sit here and convince me in this era of the transfer portal, especially when you look over at exactly what we brought up, TJ Otzelberger, what he's done at Iowa State in just a couple of years, that it can't be done quickly.
That's what I just said. I think Fran could do it.
I'm not saying Fran. I'm saying if they were to start somewhere else is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think Darren DeVries could have had – if Fran walked away this right now and they would hire Darren DeVries, I think he could get Iowa to Sweet 16 in 2 or 3 years.
I mean, I don't think it depends on what you do in the portal. You could make it sweet. Would you be shocked if West Virginia's in the tournament next year?
No,
because you can build in the portal, and you get guys to follow you if you're successful at a previous school. I don't know who's going to follow Darren DeVries, and I don't know. Like, for the record, if Fran were to leave tomorrow, if he walked away tomorrow, I don't think Iowa's any better of a job than West Virginia. In fact, I think West Virginia is probably a better job right now. So he's not going to jump from West Virginia to Iowa, I doubt, even though there's connections to the family to Iowa. So anyways, I know I'm kind of rambling on this, but I want to look more big picture. So, all
right, before everyone gets on me for being a Fran lover or anything, if they don't make the NCAA next year, 100% they need to look elsewhere. But right now he's going to be the coach next year, and so Ari Gold or whoever wants to whine about it, you can whine all you want. I talked to Beth on Wednesday at the thing. That was one good thing about going to the NIT. I guess my dad said, "Don't embarrass me," and then I go up and talked about anyone I could find. Kim McCausland, the streets, Beth, our man Tom Caker. My dad's like, "Stop that!" But
what did you say? What did you ask Beth? Did you ask her any tough questions?
No, I actually just said you're doing a good job.
Okay, all right.
I said, hey, really looking forward to the future of Iowa men's basketball. I don't know how she interpreted that.
Yeah,
but that's all I said.
Yeah, I think what has been proven, and I know that the Brian Ferentz decision went above her pay grade, but she was at the center of that, and my guess is, well, the Gary Barta era is over.
Yeah.
So it was actually, I think it was our good friend Mark Rogers that asked me maybe a week ago. He said, "What would you do if you were the Iowa AD as it relates to men's basketball?" And I'd never had anybody out. Like, I do this show all the time, and everybody loves to throw their opinions out there, but nobody really asked me, like, what would you do with Fran? And here was my answer to Mark. I wouldn't fire Fran. I wouldn't do that. Just like
you do the 25 thing with him.
No. But just like a year ago, I would not have fired Brian a year ago. But here's what I do. I don't want to say force, because that's not the right word, but maybe you basically strongly encourage change, and you lay it all out for your head coach. And you say, look, this is where we're at. We want this relationship to work. However, we've got some issues right now.
Yep.
And I would have done the same thing with Kirk, even though we had, we talk about all the power he had, but I would have said, Brian cannot continue coaching quarterbacks. We don't want to have to let him go, but we're going to bring in somebody that can help him. Are you willing to do this, Kirk? And if Kirk says no, you say, okay, well, he's done. We're not playing this game. And I'd say the same thing with Fran. Fran, I don't know what it's going to take to, whether it's another coach that specializes on the defensive end. I know that's been brought up before, and maybe that's not, people don't like the idea of someone micromanaging your job. I get that, but I would not fire Fran, but I would try to find a way to motivate Fran McCaffrey, even though I know it's hard to do when you're in your 60s.
Yeah. I don't know if you saw the thing I on your comment on Facebook that I put about Matt Woodley. But
I believe I did. Yes.
Matt Woodley would be, if I don't know what the future is, Matt Woodley probably will be offered the Drake job, I'd imagine. If Drake doesn't do that, they're about as dumb as they were in 2008 when they didn't give Coach Close the job and offered Mark Phelps the job, not the sworn Mark Phelps, the no-name coach to Mark Phelps the job. But I talked to mentioned that on the podcast before to Coach Close. He would be somebody that would be, you heard of his scout. He did what the video I posted was him doing a defensive scout. And he would be perfect if Dillard would resign to fill that position and be a coach of the waiting. I would feel, and probably
that's the only feasible option here. If Sherm Dillard is near retirement, because he's not, like, as I said before, Doug, Fran is not, I think I said this to Tony the other day, Fran's not going to fire Courtney Eldridge or Matt Gatens to bring in a defensive-minded coach. But if Sherm walks away, maybe. But he's had opportunities when Billy Taylor walked away, when Andrew Francis walked away. Like, he's had opportunities, and he's not done that and went that direction. So that's why I don't have a lot of confidence in him doing that.
But
Frank,
Matt would be perfect for that position. I'm a little biased and stuff, but
Frank, I'm not asking you to make a comment on potential staff changes, but I am curious about your philosophy. You coach AAU, and you've obviously played the game at a high level. I'm curious your take on the idea of hiring an assistant coach who specializes, almost taking a page from like a John Beilein or even college football where you have specialized assistant coaches. Is that something that's feasible?
It is feasible. Again, you do have, like I said, Dillard. I mean, I think having Dillard there does, in my opinion, help out with Fran's recruiting.
Yeah.
Dillard's a very knowledgeable guy. He has tons of basketball knowledge, tons of basketball history. So having somebody who's strong foot in that space can allow comfortability that Fran knows he has a backup guy that can, question his opinion or question his moves at times, and also give him a good fit opinion on some things. But you do need a culture shift in Iowa.
Yeah. Well,
you do need. I mean, not to echo, Doug, but you do need another voice in that locker room. You need somebody else to get these guys motivated. I mean, a typical Fran, if he's not getting his way, he's yelling at the refs, he's pouting. They have the rage meter. Okay, that gets old. We need something else. Besides you yelling at the refs, what are you telling your players? Where's the adjustments? So you might need a third and fourth guy in that space. And we do have those guys on the bench. But again, I don't know how much control Fran has or how much he allows his coaches to be that influence makers. Again, you have to have a coach, or the head of the snake has to be accepting of a secondary, third, or traditionary voice in that locker room. To your point, Corey.
14 years is, and I understand everyone in the chat that would ever be against me for going, oh, you can't be pro Fran. Yes, 14 years is a long time of the same old. And, you want a new script. And I totally understand that. It will happen. Fran's not going to be there forever. I would doubt he goes through 28. But, again, I don't know anything. I would like to see something happen on the offseason that gives us more hope. I think anytime my Hawks can go to the Sweet 16. But, again, it takes luck. It takes getting the right players out of the portal. And Fran hasn't proved he could do it. But, yeah, every year I think Iowa can go to the Sweet 16 because I'm delusional. But
there is some randomized element to that. But, and here's the only place that I really disagree with Gary Close. And Gary obviously has done it. He's lived through it. I get it. He's coached through it. But I'll admit, I almost feel like Gary sometimes attributes it way too much to chance. Like, it's just hard to win in the tournament, and it's hard to predict. But yet you have the same teams that seem to figure out a way to get there.
Well, what's happened to Virginia all of a sudden?
I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna butt in a little bit. This relates back to your question, Doug and Corey. When it comes to coaching. Like I said, I was a head coach for AAU program, nowhere near college basketball, not even close to the level of college basketball. But you got to have an open philosophy that we're all head coaches. We're not just, I'm the head of your assistant. You know what I mean? So the other programs that do figure out a way is because there's 3 and 4 guys that the players listen to. And the coaching, like I said, I'm repeating myself and being echoing in the situation, but you have to listen to what your other coaches are saying. Like-minded individuals, we cannot win championships. I need someone on my bench to tell me, Frank, it's not working. Sub such and such in. Frank, that play's not working. Put, Patrick in, or hey, Frank, I need that strong voice because my opinion does not always win basketball games.
Well, having Courtney and Matt play for him means there already is a dynamic that he's the authority. And I'm not saying they're scared to speak up for him. I know Matt and Courtney would never be afraid to speak up to Fran, but there's that dynamic that, they're still underneath him, where if you bring in someone different that's outside the program, I'm sure Sherman Dillard doesn't have that problem speaking to Fran, but Sherman Dillard's personality is not quite, I don't know. I just think a fresh voice would be good. Maybe a fresh voice at the head coaching job, I agree, might be good too. But let's see what happens.
Tony, or Doug, it comes down. Yeah, Doug. It comes down to, is Fran willing to do that?
Yeah,
because
don't Tony like that.
Again, go back 2 years ago with Iowa football. I know different situations, apples to oranges somewhat, but they're still fruit, right? They're still fruit. So, like 2 years ago, you had the Brian Ferentz situation, and I made the comment that, like, hey, Randy Hedberg would be a great, and Don Patterson agreed with us. He'd be a great addition as a quarterbacks coach. Why? Because he wouldn't be a threat to Brian.
Yeah.
So, although what you said is true, would Fran be willing to? Does he want someone who's going to be that other voice, or would he rather have people who respect him as that voice? I don't know what the dynamic there is. I'm just saying there are dynamics involved.
Well, I agree with everyone. With a lot of people in the chat, even though I seem like I don't, change needs to be made, and either it's from Fran in one way or another, or Fran does lose his job. I mean, at this point, you have to make changes somewhere. I don't know, in coaching philosophy, defense philosophy, other voices, but NIT second round, not good enough, even for diehards like me. And that's where I'll leave it. Good season was what it was. Frank, I hope Tony the best in whatever decision he makes. Again, anyone that has anything ill to say of your nephew, I'll go talk to them for you guys.
Thank you, Doug.
All you guys have ever done is treat our program with respect, and we should do the same to you. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you, Doug.
Thank you, Doug. I
By the way,
appreciate that.
South Bend Hawkeye, I know you're in the chat under a different username. I'm not afraid to block you again, so you keep opening new usernames, but just be aware. I won't throw your name out there because I don't want to give you more attention than you deserve, which is none. But anyways, let's go to our next Iowa spot. Do we have a few more minutes, Frank, or do I need to let you slide here? We got a couple people who.
I got a good 10 minutes. About 10 minutes left.
Okay, we got 10 minutes. He just gave us 10 minutes, so let's get to our next Iowa Smokehouse caller. We got Tony.
Hey, I got a 10-minute timer. Got a 10-minute timer. This is going to be tough. I will save. Are you going to do I guess first question, because this will eliminate a few of my questions. Yep. Are you going to do like an off-season review show?
Oh, of course. Yeah.
Okay. Because I have like two things that are about why I'm absolutely out on Darren DeVries and why there are 7 better head coach candidates.
What do you mean you're out on Darren DeVries?
Like everyone thinks like he was the answer, but I'll save that.
Well, it's easy to say he's not the answer.
Well, this was even before he got announced for the West Virginia job. This was way before that. Way before that. So, anyways, I'll move on. Hey, Frank, if you don't mind me asking, what were Tony Perkins' injuries and how serious were they?
I know he had messed up his wrist this year, so he was battling a sore right wrist out of the shooting hand. He had actually surgery. I don't know if it was on the right or left hand about a year and a half ago. I know he had a growing injury that was kind of lingering, but nothing substantial to where this should affect his play. But I mean, I know he has some lingering bruises, which I tell anybody, I mean, all these kids are hurt. You can't go across that bench and not say one kid are battling something. That's just sports, I was a college athlete. Everybody's hurt, so those are just minor things that he has to fight through. But that was about it.
I mean, especially at this point of the year, like you said, everybody's got something, whether it's an ankle, a hip, a wrist, or something. They're all battling through something.
Yeah.
I was going to ask about the altitude, but I mean, you guys brought that up. It is 4,200 feet there. But I was going to ask if you've ever played at that altitude.
No. Have you, Corey?
No, I have not.
Well, no, and I asked this because I lived in Montana for 18 months, and it's about the same altitude as Salt Lake City. It is a completely different level of air up there. It is. Mm-hmm. Not making an excuse. I was just asking the general. It's not an excuse. I'm just asking a general question.
I just know that in the past you have been someone.
About the balls, 100%.
Brought up the basketball.
The basketball's 100%. I will bring that up because that is a complete difference.
Yeah.
You would agree with that, Frank, right? Playing
Yeah,
with a
chasing
Wilson ball versus a
basketball,
Nike ball versus an Adidas, it's 100% different.
it's a different man. Nike, Wilson, Adidas, they're all
Under
different
Armour,
basketball.
yeah.
Under Armour, they're all different, you know. And hold on, back to your point, Tony. Corey, again, about the altitude, again, it's not an excuse.
No.
But it's nice. But again, I believe Iowa got to Utah. What's today? Sunday? Was it like Friday evening?
No, they got there yesterday. They left at
yesterday.
the same time. They left at the same time the women tipped. I was actually trying to track this because I'm like, I thought they should have got out of town and got in there Friday to avoid like that's just me. We're bringing this up. This is scary.
I'm with you, Tony. I'm with you 100%. I'm sorry, Corey, but as a coach,
get in there early.
Kansas State Tuesday. We play Kansas State when Tuesday.
Mm-hmm. We
should have been in Utah at least by Friday or Thursday evening, practicing on that court.
Yep. And one thing I will add, and I know you'll probably laugh at me for saying this, Corey. They left right at the same time the Iowa women tipped. If you don't think those boys care about how the Iowa women did in the tournament, I'm sorry. I don't know what to say. Like, it was the worst poor planning of scheduling for when they could leave and when they could get there possible. They left.
I think so.
I
don't know if that was in France control or the AD's control, but if we had a choice, me and Tony would have been there Friday.
Yep.
At the latest.
100% agree with that. I was tracking flights. I was like, I swear they should leave Friday. I don't know why they're not leaving Friday. And they just didn't leave Friday. And then they left 2:00 right as soon as the women tip on Saturday. And there's zero time to – I mean, I know one day doesn't sound like much, but it makes a big difference.
It makes a big difference. I mean, he gave me 2 days to shoot on those rims, at least 2 days.
To our user here who asks, who's the guy in the middle? The guy in the middle is our good friend Frank Henderson, who happens to be Tony Perkins' uncle, and you played D1 basketball yourself. So, and you coach still. Are you still coaching with our former Hawkeye, Devin Archie?
No, he's actually I believe he's the head coach now for EG10. So I was the head coach for 3 years, and he's been doing it for the past 4 years now. So he's still coaching for Eric Gordon's program right now as we speak.
Cool. Very cool.
I got one, and I'll close out and save the rest for off-season stuff.
Yeah,
I know. That's why I'm doing my one, and that's it. Okay. How do you work on like loose ball and broken play defense? I understand just grab the rebound and you don't worry about it. But broken plays are going to happen every game. And I swear if there's a stat that was tracked of how bad Iowa gives up shooting percentages, they'd be awful. So just like, how do you do that? And I'll log off because stuff like that. But just broken plays and like broken play defense and like tip balls that go to the team and they keep it and they get an extra possession and stuff like that. Like, I understand you grab the rebound, grab the loose ball. That's what you want to do. But broken plays are going to happen, obviously. It seems like Iowa's absolutely awful in scramble situations. Like if a ball gets tipped and then it's pass, boom, open shot. Like if it's a scramble or they give up an offensive rebound, it's like 80 to 90% it seems like the other team shoots. How do you fix that? And I'll log off. Thank you.
I'm going to tell you the answer to Tony's question. I'm going to say this. Sometimes as a coach, not saying Fran does this, but as a coach, you can almost micromanage your team a little bit too much. When I say micromanage your team is that sometimes some coaches are so play by play oriented. Sometimes it takes those natural skill sets out of the players and they become system players. They don't be their natural selves. They become systems. You know what I'm saying? They become robots in a sense. If you focus on letting the teams have a basic motion offense, 1 or 2 motion offense, maybe 1, 2, or 3 motion offenses, and have a few sets in between, it still gives players flexibility to let them facilitate their own game in their own natural way to score, defend, rebound, and so forth. But sometimes if you're so focused on play calling and the show's about me as a coach, how I run my team, your players become robots in itself. So when the play breaks down, they're so programmed to do, okay, what's next? Well, if you're a natural playmaker and a natural play thinker, by the way you're coach, you're going to automatically do what's next. As you see right now, I like Owen Freeman. he's not too much of a systematic player. He's going to play his game regardless because he hasn't been in the system that long. He just knows get a bucket. Brock Harding, the play breaks down, he go gets a bucket. But those are the young guys on the team. They're just still in their natural form. But I mean, within that system over time, will we see that loose activity to where they can, create and make things happen? We don't know. Again, that contributes on who's your coach and how they run their offense.
All right, we got about 2 minutes left with Frank. We've got Bert on our line. Bert, welcome to the show.
Hey, Corey. Hi, Frank. How you doing?
What's up, Bert?
Bert.
Actually, his real name's Ryan, but he likes to go by Bert in tribute to his mentor, Brett Bielema. Correct, Ryan? Am I right?
Well, I do live in Illinois, so,
Yes, you
ILL.
I thought Bert was your after hours name. My bad.
Well, I wish the bar was open, but I don't have anything to celebrate tonight. And then to make matters worse, my two most hated teams are going up in the Sweet 16, Iowa State and Illinois. What the hell? I mean, I don't know which way to go there. No, they're going up against each other.
Oh, okay. I'm thinking ahead. Go ahead. Yeah.
Anyway, today, I got to say, Frank, you would be a great college level coach. You say a lot of things that really get me thinking, like, you know what? You just put into words what I struggle to describe. But one thing you did say that made just a ton of sense that I just kept thinking about throughout this game was how when we get beat, it's because the opponent largely is attacking the basket. That Davion Smith, that 6-foot guard, had a triple-double today. He's quick as a cat. He knows how to finish at the rim. He knows how to slither his way through. And he killed us. Of course, so did the guy who went right all the time, Madsen. But that Davion Smith killed us. And we, settle for, say, like a Ben Krikke or Josh Dix 15-foot jump shot. We don't have enough driving to the rim. I think that's a huge reason why we struggle. And obviously, our defense is terrible. If you could change one thing, like if you were in charge and you said, this one thing is priority, whether it's attacking the rim, overall commitment to defense, what would it be that would get – what one thing could happen in your mind that would go the furthest in changing a weakness into, either not a weakness or a strength?
Great question, Bert. I don't even know where to begin. It would just contribute to what Corey and I have been talking about in the previously. There's so many different angles we can approach with this question because, obviously defense is a priority. Play breakdowns, which Tony asks, is a priority. How do we figure that out when plays break down? Locker room motivation. How do we get our guys going? And I guess being bland, if you want to say, using the term culture is very bland, but there has to be a shift or a change in leadership or locker room talk will be a priority, in my opinion. I'm not saying Fran to lose his job. I'm not saying fire Fran. I'm saying there has to be a change within the Iowa program that's shocking enough that you see a traumatic difference in how our players operate out there on the basketball court. Because like I said, Bert, and I joke with Corey about this, Iowa basketball at times is very robotic. It's almost like a rerun of last week's episode. There's not much of a change. Hell, we watch it so much, we pretty much know the offense. We might know the offensive play's name. We know what's about to happen.
Right.
So if we're scouting the team just from as fans, we're not even like other teams that are going against Iowa. Just imagine how prepared Utah was against Iowa going to this game. It didn't take much.
And keep in mind, Bert, that Drew in the chat brings up pick and roll defense. How would you rate Iowa's pick and roll defense specifically, Frank?
What, pick and roll defense?
Yeah. Ball screen defense, pick and roll defense.
Let's see. So I'm not the best in math, but if you have 2 minus 5, it's like -3. So I mean, it's pretty much not existent. So I don't know.
Well, that's one thing that Drew brings up in the chat, and but there's a number of issues, and it's just about what you emphasize and what you focus on the most, right? I don't know.
I'm with you that, generally speaking, we probably should ask for some changes without firing Fran. That being said, though, part of me thinks that NIL dollars and what have you will probably dramatically increase to support new blood. I'm not quite yet to that point, but in this new landscape, who knows? All I know is I got gray hair, and the last time we made a Sweet 16, I was just graduating from Iowa, starting my career. That was 25 years ago. It's been too damn long.
How much different does Brett Bielema look now than he did in 1999 when they made a Sweet 16 last spurt?
Well, he doesn't look so hot in those ugly colors that he wears around nowadays.
Well, that's fair.
But
he does look a lot different.
A little bit. Yep. Well, I've already told you that he's a danger to grocery stores. But anyway, great coach, though. Hey, Frank, thank you so much for everything this year. I really enjoy your insight. I know so many Hawkeye fans do too. Don't be a stranger, man.
Thank you, Ryan. Appreciate it. All right, Frank. Hey, I'm going to take 1 or 2 more calls here, but I'm going to let you slide. I know you're in the Eastern time zone, so it's already Monday on your side of the woods. Thank you for being here. We will have you back. We're going to definitely talk off season, and I guess final thing I want to bring up, because it is fair to bring this up. I'm not going to ask you, do you think Tony's coming back or not? But can you give us an idea as to when you think Tony might have a decision? Because it seems like these things move very fast. Guys' seasons are over and they're jumping in the portal or they're making decisions. When do you expect Tony to have a decision made?
So this is how everything's going to play out. I always tell him, and me and him had a conversation about this, that talk to your coaches. First off, decide what you want to do. Go to him with, your yearly review on how you feel as a player. Go to your coach for 3 non-negotiables, how you want to move towards next year. Hear your coach's opinion about how you played this year and see if they agree with your game plan for next year. If it co-aligns to what you want to do and further your career in, then go for it and continue being a Hawkeye. So, and that's something that we preached every year. This is not just this year. You know what I mean? So far, Tony's never had anything bad to say against Iowa. The fact that Iowa gave him an opportunity when nobody else did as far as a Power 5, he has some type of, heart and in debt with Iowa and Coach Fran and Coach Dillard, and he loves those guys. So we don't know. I'm not pushing for either way, but it's up to him. I always get the keys in his hands. I say, hey man, you're the driver. I'm just a passenger king that sits next to you, So, we'll see how this plays out once he gets back to his apartment and thinks some things through.
Can you give me a percentage of what percentage does Iowa's NIL package that they can offer? How much does that play, if any, as it relates to being a factor?
It plays a factor because I think you should capitalize on the opportunities you have in front of you. But I'm a big speaker on keeping the main thing the main thing. And what I mean by that is, like, if your goal and dream is to play professionally and play in the NBA, the money will come. The money will come, So, and ultimately it's in God's hands. So, don't focus on the money too much because, all money ain't always good money neither. So focus on what's important to you. Once you find those things that are important to you, then everything else that you wish for will pour right into your hands. So we'll just see how that plays out.
Personally, I think Peyton should come back. I don't think Peyton right now is ready for the league. Maybe there's some draft experts that disagree with that. I think both he and Tony could have an excellent opportunity for both those guys, in my opinion, Frank. to go declare for the draft, get some feedback, and then whether either one of those guys keeps playing at Iowa is a decision you have to make. But I think another year in college would serve both of them well. What I hate to see
I
is
agree.
like Aaron White. Now, Aaron White's had a really good career overseas, but you get drafted late in the second round, never get a blink in the NBA, never get a cup of coffee in the NBA. That's what I don't want to see that happen for a couple of guys. I think upside-wise, very high. All right, Frank. Well, appreciate your time, sir, and it's always a pleasure. Don't be as like I think it was our friend Slambert said. Don't be a stranger to the show. We'll have you back sometime during the off season. Hopefully, talking about a decision from Tony and an outlook for 2024, 2025. But appreciate the time, sir. Get some rest.
Yeah, thank you, Corey. And we should get Coach Archie back on as well too. We should do a collab effort next time for the end of the year review.
We'll get Devin back on. Thank you, sir. Frank Henderson, uncle of Tony Perkins and former D1 athlete himself. Appreciate Frank being here, recapping what was a disappointing end to Iowa basketball season, Iowa men's basketball season. 91-82, the loss to Utah. I'll give you a box score update here in just a second because we haven't done that yet. I know we kind of been fixating on the big picture. We've got at least another 10 minutes here. We've got James on hold, and if anybody wants to call, the phone line is still open for now. Iowa Smokehouse phone line. Call-in line is open. The number is 515-635-1601, 515-635-1601, or you can click the link in the description below. Before we get to that, I want to thank Iowa Smokehouse. They are sponsoring our call-in line and the show as a whole. Appreciate them. And they're also at work and putting together some great prize packages for some winners. The top 3 winners, actually, on each side, both the men's bracket madness and the women's bracket madness. Check out and follow the bracket groups over on ESPN. You can click the links in our description to find those brackets. Iowa Smokehouse proud supporter of this show and of Iowa basketball as a whole, both the men and the women. They're with us throughout women's basketball postseason. Check it all out, iowasmokehouse.com, and use the code Hawkeyes for 15% off your total order of meat sticks, jerky, steak bites, and the like. Everything is great. iowasmokehouse.com. Tasting is believing. And RTI Threads, our RTI Threads player of the game, Patrick McCaffrey today, 19 points, 7 of 9 from the field, 4 rebounds in what we think to be Patrick's final game as a Hawkeye. Word on the street is that he'll likely move on, but no official decision made as of yet. Rough night for Peyton Sandfort, Iowa's leading scorer, 1 of 11 from the field, 0 for 5 from 3, 5 points, fouled out of the game, had 4 rebounds. Ben Krikke had 12 points, 6 rebounds. He was 6 of 11. So not a terrible day for Ben. Owen Freeman had 12 points, did only total 1 personal foul. So that's good news. But he's 5 of 12 from the field, 2 of 4 from the free throw line. Josh Dix had 14 points to go along with 14 rebounds. So pretty balanced. Nothing blows off the stat sheet. Pretty balanced offensively. But boy, rough day for Sandfort. And then you look at Tony Perkins, 1 of 5 from the field, 3 points, 3 assists, 4 rebounds for Tony. Laji Dembele played just 8 minutes, kind of reduced minutes for him. No points, really no stats. Had 1 turnover, and that's about it. Missed a free 3-point shot and was +7, I guess, while he was on the floor. If you want to look at one good stat, it's actually the best plus-minus of anybody on the court. Think about that. He scored 0 points, and yet he has the best plus-minus. I guess that's an indication he came in when they were making a run. Anyways, Patrick McCaffrey, again, our player of the game, 19 points for Patrick. Brock Harding was 5 of 5. There's a good spark off the bench for the Hawkeyes. 12 points, 4 assists, 1 turnover. And then Price Sandfort had 5 points, 1 3-point make. So there's your scoreboard or your box score update from Iowa's loss to Utah. Let's go back to our Iowa Smokehouse call-in line. James, welcome to the show.
Iowa State's going to end up losing it, by the way. It was back and forth, and then they missed a 2-pointer, and Stanford got the rebound, and then they made 2 free throws. So there's 6.3 seconds left. Stanford's up 4.
Okay, so the Stanford Cardinal about to survive. And what was the situation there at the end of regulation, James?
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, like, who was ahead at the end of regulation? How did they get to overtime?
It was tied. But it was – they just kept making shots. Like, every time they make a 3, Stanford would make a 3. Every time they made a 2, Stanford would make a 2. So it just went back and forth. But then Brinks fouled out right before or at half, I can't remember, at the overtime. It was right before at overtime, I can't remember. And then Crooks fouled out in overtime. So it kind of took both the bigs out the game, so it kind of made it a little bit less of a, the matchup I think people wanted to see with Crooks and Franks. Crooks is 3 for 21, by the way, in the game. But
Okay.
But no, about this game, first off, you talked about I seen somebody talk about like pick and roll defense. The one thing I noticed too is like, so the school I coach at, the way we teach it is a lot of times we hedge or we don't hedge, right? Or if we hedge, we don't switch, right? That's the way we teach it, at least at the school I coach at. But like other schools, I get teach it the other way. But it's like you hedge and then you stay with your guy. What I was doing was they were hedging, but the big would stay up, and then you get like a Brock Harding on the big, and it's like that's a very mismatch you don't want, like a Brock Harding on the big or something like that. And then the way they were hedging it kind of threw it off too, where it was like the big sometimes wasn't on the right side, or like the guard would be behind the big, so the big would just pin down the guard, if that makes sense. And so then it would put him in a one-on-one situation with the guard because they're getting pinned down instead of the big staying in the spot where he needs to. He would come up too far in the hedge, and it kind of threw it off, and that's what gave them kind of open looks early. And even on that too, sometimes the bigs they weren't out far enough to where sometimes the 3-point shooters can get looks too because they weren't all the way out. If that makes sense, the bigs weren't all the way out. They were trying to stay hugged to their guy, but then the guy pinned somebody down and nobody came out on the shooter. And
is it fair, James, for us to say the way they lost today was kind of same old, same old?
Yeah, and I'm not saying that. Like I agree, it's same old. It's just sometimes I think it's also coaching, but it's also fundamentals. You should know that as a way where it's like, I get they don't teach it, but
fundamentals though, you got to teach them.
No, I'm saying as a player, sometimes you should know fundamentals too. The way you should know the little things where it's like, oh, there's a mismatch there. Maybe next time down the court, let's not make it as much of a mismatch, right? Like that's something in your head you should know. At least if you're a good player, if you're a really good player, you would know that, right? Where it's like, okay, Brock was guarding whoever the big man is. I don't know what his name is, right? But Brock was guarding the big. That's not a good matchup. They're going to get cooked every time if that happens. So let's get somebody to switch on it. If you're a good player, you would notice that right away and say, hey, somebody else switch on that. Or they set the screen, somebody else switch real quick with him so you have at least a bigger matchup. Even if you're going to switch it, have like a Peyton or somebody who's a little bit taller, instead of just sticking Brock on him or Dix on him, where they can kind of, make that mismatch even worse, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, I get you. Yeah, I think those are all fair points. And I do think fundamentally, it's been apparent to me that there are a lot of defensive fundamentals that are not taught effectively or just not emphasized enough, even for these college athletes that you think, well, they should know fundamentals. Well, they still got to be taught, especially in the defensive end. And I just don't know if that's going to change unless you get a change with the head coach.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with that. There's some other things here and there. Obviously, now you got to focus on next year. What you bring into Wings and Cooper Koch and Chris Tadjo. But, hopefully one of them come back, if not both, for sure, because it would help us a little bit better. Because I feel like if they don't, it kind of puts us in a bad spot. What I mean by that is, I don't know if Brock's ready yet. I don't know if Josh is ready for the load he's going to have to carry if those guys aren't there, right? I don't know if Price is ready for that load yet, right? But it's if you get those two guys back, you at least have some people you can rely on and then add some pieces in the portal, if that makes sense. Because if you don't have them you're going to have to go really big in the portal. And I don't know if we have the NIL to go really big in the portal, or we're going to have to go smaller guys like a Cricky who went to Valpo or something like that to get the portal. Because, our NIL funds aren't there compared to Illinois and Iowa State and Minnesota and all that.
And speaking of Cricky, this is an interesting question in the chat. And James, maybe you can dissect it for me. Michael wants to know what the mid-major market for 6'8" guys with a mid-range jump shot looks like this offseason. I'm assuming he's talking about Patrick. Is he talking about Iowa needing a 6'8" guy with a mid-range?
I don't want a 6. I mean, obviously, maybe they say mid-range is kind of more of the dead, one of the worst shots in basketball, just because it's kind of dead.
Well, they've got a bunch of guys who make mid-range.
I know, but I'm saying that's what a lot of coaches would tell you, especially a lot of college coaches would tell you. It's the worst shot in the game just because you kind of layups it, most efficient, 3-pointers give you more points, obviously. So that's what they'll say. But for that, it's I just hope we do what we can in the portal. And I know the NIL issues is the NIL issue, and I know Fran had something to do with that. And obviously, that's something maybe we talk about in the future, obviously. But Fran will be back, and I know things might not change. But one thing I've seen somebody say is and I know people aren't going to like me saying this, but I think if Sherm leaves, I think they're going to go with Tristan Spurlock, just because that's what Fran does. He usually stays in the house where he goes with somebody he knows. And Tristan's been there for
likely nothing changes with the defense.
Yeah. But I'm saying Tristan's been there for 2-3 years. He knows Tristan well. And that's why I think he would go, just because he knows him, and that's how Fran has always worked, where he's always with people he knows. And I know Tristan's been on the program for a couple years. I know the guys really like him from what I see on podcasts and everything. I know the guys really like Tristan. They really like him. So, but I don't think anything really changes with the defense, like we said. But it'll be interesting to see. And I know they've reached out to I don't remember who was saying earlier. They reached out to Michael Brown-Stevens of UC Greensboro, and they reached out to Dakota LaFew of Mount St. Mary's. But I know people aren't going to like those names, Mount St. Mary's and UNCG. But we got to do what we got to do sometimes. So,
yep.
In that aspect. But what's your one? So let's say Peyton and Tony come back. What is the one need in the portal you would like?
If Peyton and Tony come back, what's the biggest need in the portal? Oh, that's a good question. Well, with Cricky gone, they need some. I think it'd be great if you could find, just like what I said last year, if you could find someone like, who's the big kid, BJ Mack, like someone like that, or a Jordan Minor, somebody who's going to give you physicality in the post. They've got Owen Freeman, but they need somebody who can pound defensively, who can rebound. That has not been Cricky. They tried to grab that last year. Maybe
I know they were close too. I know they were close to getting BJ Mack, but from what I've heard from people, that the money, South Carolina offered him a little bit more, in an AL, and it was something he kind of worried about, so he went to there. And I know same with Minor, kind of like he got offered more money at other places, so it kind of swayed his decision too. So like, with that being said, obviously, there's a lot of names, and it's cool to see Darren. I know people want Darren DeVries, but for me being an Iowa guy and, being kind of like 30 minutes, 45 minutes away from where Darren grew up, just knowing what he meant to the state and kind of the area in a way, it's cool to see Darren DeVries get a new job. And obviously, whether people wanted to be at Iowa or not, I was either way. I didn't really care. I'm going to support the next coach no matter who it is, but I'm cool to see him get a job at West Virginia, and hope he does good things in the Big 12.
James, are you aware that Jordan Minor went from averaging 17.4 points per game at Merrimack to averaging 4 points per game at Virginia?
Yeah, but it's the style Virginia plays. Virginia is not really as much of a feed the big guy kind of style. They just play defense.
But he averaged 4.
Yeah, I know. That's a big drop off. That's a big drop off, and sometimes that happens from the mid major or the lower major.
I know, but I'm just 4, and then 3.6 rebounds a game. Let's see, 3.6 rebounds. No, 3.1 rebounds per game. Down from 9.5 at Merrimack. His last. What
was BJ? What BJ did at South Carolina?
Just so you're aware, Jordan Minor's minutes, he also got less than half as many minutes as he had at Merrimack. As it relates to BJ Mack at South Carolina, because of course Virginia was a tournament team, had that disastrous first 4 game. Was South Carolina in the tournament?
Yes, they lost to Oregon.
That's right. They got upset by Oregon.
Yeah.
BJ he actually had a really good year. If you look at stats, BJ went from Wofford, where he was averaging 16.6 per game, averaged 13.6 per game at South Carolina, about the same number of rebounds, 5 boards a game, and a few less minutes. But no, his game seemed to have translated pretty well.
Yeah. But I'm just scared in the fact of, what I mean by that is the fact of, if neither of them come back, like Tony and Peyton, where this can kind of go next year, especially if the portal doesn't go the way we want it to.
I don't think Sanford's going anywhere. Where's he going to go?
I'm not saying that, but I'm saying there's a chance he could not come back, just because I know he is second round on some boards, and maybe to him that means a lot. I think he's coming back, but if he doesn't, there's a chance he might not. You always got to weigh it that way. But
my only, really, honestly, I think both will come back, but my big concern with Tony coming back is Tony will have offers from other programs across the country. He's not an Iowa kid. And I do think there's going to be teams like they did with Joe Toussaint, where a program's going to come along and they're going to tamper and they're going to say, hey, we can offer you X amount of money, and we think we can highlight your skill set here better than I was ever going to, specifically what he can give you from an athleticism standpoint on the defensive end. Peyton's an Iowa kid who doesn't.
He'll stay. If he doesn't go to the league, he's staying for sure, because he's an Iowa kid. He's born and raised in Iowa. Like, if he doesn't go, he's staying. And that's 100% true.
I think there's a bigger risk that Tony transfers than either one of them goes to the NBA.
Yeah. But I know that Peyton is on draft boards in the second round. And the only reason that is because he can shoot. And I get people who say this and that. But a lot of times in the NBA, if you kind of watch NBA games, I know you watch a lot of Dallas Mavericks games, so I know you do watch NBA games. But a lot of times it's not as much focus on defense as it is putting the ball on the hole. And Peyton a lot of times can shoot threes, and he's some people's eyes might be good at it, you know, and other people might not, but he can shoot the 3-ball consistently well or somewhat well, you know, and maybe an NBA team thinks, oh, we can hone you to get better shots, or we can fix your form a little bit. You can knock down better shots, or we can get you more consistent, you know, and maybe they think that way as an NBA team and they're like, hey, come play for us, or we'll draft you in the second round. We can get you that way. That's how some coaches think. I know in the NBA. I'm not saying that's true. That's how some coaches think in the NBA. And you know that as much as I know that. That is how some people think in the NBA. So maybe they might give him a guarantee, or, oh, we will draft you. Or like an AJ Green. I don't know if you know AJ Green's story, but he didn't go drafted. But Milwaukee said, hey, if you don't go draft, we're going to sign you. And, you know, you have a good chance of making the roster. I don't know if that happens. I don't think he will, but you never know.
You know what's crazy? And I haven't been following Joe Toussaint's career. You do realize he played this year, right?
He's at Texas Tech, yeah.
Yeah, and he averaged 12 points, 4 rebounds, shot 86% from the free throw line, shot 30% from 3, so not great. But he was 46% from inside the 3-point arc, and averaged 34 minutes a game for a Red Raiders team that made the tournament and won. They lost to NC State. But I mean,
it's funny because it seemed like he fit there better than he fit West Virginia. And
he fit both places, though.
Yeah,
I mean,
but I feel like he fit there numbers wise. Numbers wise at Texas Tech, he seemed like he fit better than it did.
Well, I know, but he still averaged 9.4 West Virginia. Played a lot less minutes. You're right. No, I mean, I'm just amazed at how successful he was this year. I mean, his last year at Iowa, he averaged 4 points.
But it's also about, do you think maybe that could be what happens with DeSante? And I know DeSante maybe not a great 3-point shooter, but I didn't think of Joe T as a great 3-point shooter either, really, in a way of like, he didn't really show that skill set at Iowa. Maybe that became something he worked on more when he got out of Iowa. I don't know, you know, but do you think maybe that's something DeSante Bowen will show, or like, what do you think?
I was high on the DeSante coming out of high school, but maybe. Yeah, maybe. I mean, I definitely think it's something like when Tony Perkins goes somewhere else. Yeah. I definitely think in a different system he could really thrive. I hope he comes back and thrives in this system, because he has had times, even more so than Joe Toussaint ever had here. But that's the kind of player that tends to go somewhere else and have more.
For sure. And that's something that I think needs to be kind of talked about too, in a friend way of like, a lot of guards have left and done big things at other schools, you know, and I think that's something that, I mean, not a lot of guards. Joe T has.
What is this comment from Drew? You guys wanted Aaron Eulis over him. What a joke. What are you talking about? What do you mean, guys? I
didn't want Aaron Eulis over him, but it's all right.
When did we ever want? I'm assuming this is directing at someone else.
Well, weren't they 2 different recruiting classes? Wasn't Joe T 1 year before Aaron Eulis anyway?
Okay, he says Iowa fans. I was gonna say I never ever made the comment that I would rather have.
I would have rather had Joe. I would have had a Joe T than Eulis if I had to choose between the two. But that was just me. I also liked the way Joe T played, and I felt like he gave more effort on defense than most people did that were out there anyways. But
yes.
But now it'd be interesting to see what happens in the offseason. Hopefully we can get a couple of transfers. But I just want whatever's best for Tony and Peyton, whatever they think is best for them to make a decision, right? Whether that's Iowa or not, I'm going to support the decision no matter what, right? So, like.
And good question from Bob here. He says, do you see anyone else joining the portal other than Bowen? Yeah, I mean, it just depends on what happens with Tony.
I don't really think anybody other than Tony, just because, like, I think Owen's here to stay because he seemed like he likes it, you know. And then like a lot of Iowa guys on this team, Dix is an Iowa guy, Price is an Iowa guy, you know. Like
I'm curious though, James. What do you, as an Iowa fan, what do you make of when you see people like, well, not even CJ Frederick, because his career has been riddled with injuries, but when you look at someone like Josh Ogundele, he transfers over to Middle Tennessee State and he's barely playing.
See. Okay, for me that's not a good example because I didn't think Josh was gonna be that good anyways. Like I thought he was gonna take time to progress, and maybe not that good, but I thought he was gonna take time to progress anyways. But I always loved Jelly as like a player and as like a person, right? Just like I always loved Jelly as a person. So like that one's not a good example for me.
Well, but I'm just saying, as a 6'11" guy who Iowa offered a scholarship to and brought in, he ain't even playing at middle.
He's missed a lot. He's missed a lot on bigs. I mean, even we talk about Mulvey, he's missed a lot on bigs, and I feel like Freeman's the next one maybe that he hasn't missed, but we talk about Mulvey too, where it's like he missed on that one too. And it's like
Mulvey's still here.
Yeah, but I mean, so far he's missed on him, and I'm not gonna say you never know, but so far he's missed on him at least for sure.
Oh, I agree.
Compared to that. But like that scares you too. It's like a lot of he's had a lot of recruiting misses more than he's had a lot of recruiting wins. Yes, he had Keegan and Chris, and even Luca, and then there's somebody else in there too. Weeds Camp, obviously. Like he's had some players that have either played in the NBA or are still playing now, but like he's had a lot of misses too, and I think that's something that we kind of don't look at. Where it's like even some of his porters have been misses. Now Robotic, I think his first year wasn't great, but his last year he was way better than he was his first year. So maybe that could have happened with Kirky if he had 2 years. Now that's my question. If you get a big, do you want a 1 year big or a 2 year big? Because I feel like a lot of times when you watch Robotic, he got better over his second year than he did his first year.
Depends on where I think it depends on where he's coming from and what kind of services does he offer. So someone like Ben Cricky, I think you knew what you were getting. You were getting a guy who's going to be able to be an average to above average scorer. Wasn't going to give you a lot on the glass. Philip Robotic had to get used to physicality because that's what he was. Like he could shoot a little bit, but in general, he was going to pound down low even as an undersized big. So, if you can get a guy like BJ Mack, who's playing in a mid-major, but clearly physically is ready to go, okay, we'll take him for a year. But it just depends on roles and what you have open. Obviously, Cricky's gone, so they're going to need they need something else in the post, whether that be Mulvey if he somehow develops, or maybe Logi takes a big step forward, or maybe it's one of the 2 freshmen that come in next year that are both forwards, maybe. But a lot of question marks.
Yeah, no, and it'll be, I guess I would say, I'd be interested to see. Hopefully the women play well tomorrow, because that's our only hope right now, obviously. And I kind of agree with you in the way I seen your tweet the other day where you said it was good Iowa State made the Sweet 16. I know some people harped on you on that, but for me, it's like,
can I explain that tweet?
Yeah, go ahead, because I saw you.
Let me explain that tweet. So I had people going after me because I made the comment that Iowa State making the Sweet 16 is good for Iowa. First of all, Iowa and Iowa State, for the most part, are not recruiting the same players in basketball. They're just not. Like, there's some overlapping, but Iowa State has feasted, even before Otzelberger, they have feasted in the transfer portal. And a lot of these transfers are coming from, so-and-so. They're coming from all over the place. So, and they're coming from Timbuktu. As it relates to Iowa's getting some kids from the state. A lot of them are Eastern Iowa kids. They obviously got Josh Dix on, but it's in general, it's not like Iowa is, going neck and neck with Iowa State for a bunch of in-state transfers. So I think the fact that you have an in-state team in Iowa with some of the same recruiting challenges as it relates to being in a small town in the middle of a cornfield is the outside narrative. And I think in general, probably middle of their conference as it relates to blue-bloodedness, if that makes sense. I think to see a team like that succeeding at getting to the second weekend consistently only lights a fire under yourself. Now, maybe that doesn't come directly from Fran McCaffrey. I'm not expecting Fran to look over at Iowa State and say, oh, they've made the second weekend. All of a sudden, we need to start playing better, and now I have more motivation to get to the Sweet 16. No. But I'm saying in general, the people that matter, the people that give money, the people that obviously a lot of people have stopped coming to games. That's going to light a fire under certain people anyways. Maybe it's even Beth Getz or the president. But the more you see pressure from the outside, because the excuses start being settled with sound evidence that, hey, it's not just about recruiting demographic. It's not just about disadvantages. It's not just about this. It's not just about that. The more teams like Iowa State, regional teams, perform well, the worse it makes Iowa look. So to me, that lights more of a fire, more of an onus on Iowa to do something, whether it be from a coaching standpoint, recruiting standpoint, facility standpoint. I just think at some point it could potentially light a fire under the powers that be to make some changes, and as opposed to just accepting that, well, we are what we are. Because sometimes I feel like some people look at Iowa like, we are what we are. You can't expect anybody to be any better than we are. Well, Iowa State's better than we are. So why can't you be better? And the more that Iowa State succeeds, the worse it makes Iowa look. And I think roundabout, that puts Iowa in a better position long-term, potentially, if they do something about it.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. And I'm going to say this. Obviously, I'm a coach in the state of Iowa at the high school level. So for me, I always respect high school basketball. I think high school basketball in the state of Iowa is kind of underrated from some other people outside of the state, obviously. I think it's better than some people give it credit for. That's all I'm going to say. Maybe not underrated, but it's better than some people get it credit for, right? But what's your thoughts on Iowa always recruiting in this state? Like, not always recruiting in the state, but they have a lot more in-state guys than Iowa State does. Do you think there's something to that too or not?
Well, I mean, here's the deal about In-State, and I was talking about those two teams not really competing against one another. That's not totally true because Iowa did recruit Omaha Billieu. They recruited Xavier Foster. I think they recruited Taman Lipsey, but
they did, but I think they knew they also were going to get Lipsey either. I think that was more like, hey, if you don't want to go there, here's this. But yeah,
sure. And maybe the Curtis Stinson Jr. is kind of the same situation. I don't know what his prospects down the road are, but I think the bottom line, like you said, is typically you have your guys that are pretty much Iowa State guys, and then you have your guys like Bohannon and Dix and Sandfort that are pretty much Iowa or going out of state. So I don't, DJ Carton's a guy that Iowa missed on, but that wasn't because of Iowa State.
I mean, Iowa State missed on him too. So, I mean, nobody in the state got him. So
exactly. I mean, Harrison Barnes, you want to go further back, we can go back. Doug McDermott, obviously. But so I don't know. I don't know how Iowa State, besides just making fans upset, that rival's going to the Sweet 16. Like, I don't know what it's not bad. Like, I don't know what it does for you as a program that's bad. I think if anything, it maybe lights a fire under you.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with you, but I don't also know if Fran looks at it that way. I think he should, but I also don't.
I don't think Fran. I don't think Fran's.
Yeah, I don't think Fran does. Obviously, fans do, but I don't think Fran does. But maybe Beth does because we have a new AD, so you never know the way she looks at it too. Where it's like, hey, they're having more success than us, But I don't know. I'm just saying that could be an idea. But
yeah, and I don't think Fran. I don't think Fran cares whatsoever. But the people that make the decisions above Fran may. Now, Doug, great question by Doug in the chat. Who do you cheer for, Iowa State or Illinois? I think 100% Illinois, because the Big Ten needs to have success, and I do think there's a cap. There's a lid on how much success you want Iowa State to have.
Yeah, I was gonna put a tweet out to some of my Iowa State people, and they were like, "We made the Sweet 16." Now it's like, what do you get for making the Sweet 16? A banner with Sweet 16 on it? Nobody's gonna remember that in 10 years, anyways. But that was just me being an Iowa fan, kind of pointing shots. But I also respect them too in the fact of they've done it a different way, like you said, and they've been successful in their ways.
And the Sweet 16 is a goal that Iowa's not been able to achieve for 25 years. So
no. Yeah,
I think it'd be good. In a way, it'd be good for Iowa if Iowa State makes the Sweet 16 but fails to advance further. And it would be good for the Big Ten if Illinois could get to the Elite Eight and possibly further.
I think they're the only team left in the Big Ten, aren't they? Yeah, they are.
Purdue.
All right, Purdue. Yeah, well, yeah, but I forgot about them. I just like to forget about them in general, but
they were dominant today. Won by 40?
Yeah, but I'll let you go, and hopefully we can bounce back next year, and you'll see what we bring in back and themes. Now you're gonna do obviously short videos, depending on their decisions, obviously, so Peyton decides to go.
Yeah, definitely, and we'll have some sort of a season recap, either with Coach or with Frank, and we'll talk about where this roster stands. Hopefully, we can get some news on Tony. I'm guessing we will get news on Tony sooner rather than later. It seems like these things happen pretty quickly, but I don't know that. And then I also got another recruiting video. I still need to put together a kind of a reaction and a breakdown of Chris Taggio, the forward from NBA Academy that's coming in next year. So, yeah, we'll have content coming.
No, I enjoy it.
Thank you, James. All right, folks. Appreciate everybody being here. It's been a great year, even though the Iowa men's basketball season maybe failed to hit expectations. Some people, I think, it met expectations. NIT bow out in the second round. You're never going to throw a party for that. But it is what it is. Iowa men's basketball is done for the year, and now they enter the offseason, the transfer portal, focus on recruiting, and we'll see what the future is for Iowa men's basketball led by Fran McCaffrey. The Iowa women play tomorrow night. Tomorrow night, they'll take on West Virginia, the 1 versus the 8 over on ESPN, 7 p.m. Central Time. Thank you for everybody. Thank you to everybody for being here, folks, including the sponsors. And if you're here and you're interested in making a donation, if you've been enjoying the post-game coverage throughout the season, please consider giving a season-ending donation. There's a message across the bottom ticker. You can do so by means of Venmo, PayPal, Cash App, or credit card. If you want to do so by credit card, just simply click on the PayPal link and make a one-time donation. Thank you to all, folks. I will talk to you tomorrow night following Iowa and West Virginia. Have a great night.